Hey, what's up? Chess Dog back with another video. This is the second day of the renewed Candidates tournament. Our game of the day is Anish Giri and Hao. Giri plays a really terrific game in the Catalan and grinds Hao down and then wins with an attack. It's really terrific. Let's look and watch the game. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, g3. So now we are in a Catalan opening. White wants to put his bishop on the g2 square and control that long light square diagonal. Bishop e7. Black responds classically. Bishop g2 castles. d4. He's saying, I'm going to give up some of the center, but I'm going to make you capture that c-pawn, and then I'm going to take advantage of the time you spend recapturing that pawn. Queen c2, a6. So queen takes the pawn at c4. Play b5, put the bishop on the long diagonal. White plays a4 to control the b5 square, so black can't just play b5 like he wants. Bishop d7. So now black is saying, I want to challenge your bishop on g2 with my bishop on that started on c8. Go bishop d7, bishop c6. Queen c4, bishop c6. Bishop f4, posting the bishop aggressively. Bishop d6, challenging that bishop. Knight c3. Bishop f4, gf4. So now white has some technical pawn weaknesses, but he also has a nice big clump of pawns in the center, controlling key squares, particularly the square e5 and also other dark squares. a5. Black moves the pawn twice, but in doing so, he gets control of that b4 square. He wants to route his knight at b8 to a6 and eventually to b4, get it on that nice square. e3, knight a6, beginning that process of going to b4, knight e5, bishop g2, king g2. So white gives up the great bishop on g2, but he says, I have a lot of control of the center, I have a well-placed knight on e5, and I can make some trouble with that. c6, trying to control the d5 square. White controls all the dark squares, black wants to fight back on the light square, so wants to control d5. White plays h3, and according to my database, this is the first novelty in the game. It controls the g4 square. I don't see why that would be a big issue at the moment, but it does do that, and it gives the king an extra place to hide on h2. Queen b6, attacking the b2 pawn. Queen e2 coming back and defending it. Now this is a Slav structure. Even though it's a Catalan opening, this pawn structure is actually a Slav structure, and the way black deals with white's center in a Slav structure, the primary tactic is to play c5 and liquidate that center, reduce white's central control. So that's what black does here, plays c5, the thematic move. Rook fd1, cd4, takes with the rook. Black contests the file. Now rook takes d8, black retakes with the queen. So we could ask ourselves, why doesn't he retake with the rook and control it with that piece? Well, if he takes with the rook, white plays queen to b7, and this puts all kinds of pressure on a5. Basically, it wins the a5 pawn. If black avoids the exchange of queens and knight to c4 comes in, goes to puts too much pressure on a5. And if instead black trades the queens, then pawn takes, hits the knight moves, rook takes a5. So the reason he doesn't take with the rook is because he would lose the a5 pawn. Queen to d8, rook d1 with tempo. Queen a8. Now that looks like it's way off the side of the board, but it's on that long light square diagonal leading to white's king, so it can potentially cause some trouble that way. White gets off that long diagonal. Knight b4. The knight finally gets to its destination. Queen to b5. We've already seen that's sort of a nice juicy square for the queen. Knight bd5. White trades off a pair of knights. Rook c1. So now white's main goal is, how do I penetrate into black's position? How do I get in there? Black wants to keep white out. White wants to find a way in. Black begins by giving his king some luft, a little air, so that he won't fall prey to any back rank mates later in the game. Queen to d7. He gets in for the moment. Knight f6, so they get back. Queen d6. Now this is the big mistake of the game. Hao plays g6, and it weakens all those dark squares around the king. Giri's going to make a lot of hay on this long dark square diagonal. The computer recommends queen to e8 and just kind of holding strong, holding steady. But that's very hard to do. It's very hard to make moves that don't do anything and just hold. And Wang Hao played g6, and that was a critical error. b3 protects a4 and also creates the b2 square as a nice place for white to put his queen to control that long diagonal. h5, king h2, king g7, queen d4, placing his queen on that long dark square diagonal. There'll be a pin on the knight on f6, really tough for black to deal with. Rook d8 tucks away at b2, controls that diagonal, and is really in a strong position. Queen to b8. So white's created a lot of pressure. How to break through? You got all the pieces where you want them, but how do you actually get into black's position? Giri makes an incredibly strong move, b4. He's going to get in on the b file. AB rook to c4, b3 rook b4, after queen a7 rook b3, now he gets in. Queen a4, rook b7, see him hitting that f7 pawn. Now he's in. Black plays the queen back to e8. Now here, he plays rook to a7. Some may ask, why doesn't he play rook f7 check? That makes sense. You get a pawn and a queen in exchange for a rook and a knight. Well, this is playable and probably still winning for white, but it makes the win a little tougher. The winning process would, this was Magnus's commentary during the game, the winning process for white would probably be f3, e4, advance the pawns, and then move the king up to g3, h4, g5. But it's a lot of work. Not only is it a lot of work, but it's unnecessary. White can just keep the pressure, and there's nothing black can do about it. Black plays rook to d5, queen to b7, now f7 is in big trouble. Knight e4, and after knight f7, it's curtains, and Wang Hao resigned, and Giri won. This has been a great candidate so far. These guys have come out swinging. They're playing innovative opening ideas, and they're really playing to win. This has been great. I can't wait for the rest of this tournament. This has been terrific. And please join us here on Chess Dog for the game of the day to find out what's going on, what the most interesting games and insights are. Thank you.